Well, I went to a very small school in West Texas. I went to Holly High School, a graduating class of 16. I had a great experience there. My dad was a basketball coach, and a very successful one. And I spent most of my junior high and high school years concentrating on basketball, and just the grades just kind of took care of themselves.
All right.
My parents played a big role in whatever I did. They wanted me to finish it, and they wanted me to do it well.
Had they gone to college?
My father was a college educated, had a master's degree, and my mother did not go to college. But they both felt very strongly that I would go to college. My dad suspected that I might be able to get a scholarship in basketball, which I did, and I went to college. I went to Abilene Christian College, 12 miles from home, on a basketball scholarship, and had a very nice experience as a point guard and on some pretty good basketball teams. I love science. I love school, and certainly math and science were my my best subjects and my favorite subjects. When I went to college, I really planned to be a basketball coach like my dad, and probably teach math and science in high school. And I really entered college with those plans. I was a good student. I would say. My freshman year in college in athletic dorm, hanging out with fellow athletes, I did not excel as a scholar. My first year or my second year was a little better, and then by my third year I really got serious about my grades. I was interested in, like I said, in science as a teaching field. I never thought I would be a scientist in the sense of doing research and doing lab work. It's kind of an interesting thing. I decided I wanted to go to dental school about my third year at Abilene Christian. I had no biology. I'd taken math and physics, chemistry, but I had no biology. To get in dental school, I needed 8 hours of biology. 4 hours had to be comparative anatomy. So I took the comparative anatomy course, which had 3 labs a week, which knocked out my basketball time. And I couldn't take another biology course that had a lab. So the only biology course at Abilene Christian without a lab was genetics. So I took a genetics course. I had to beg the professor. I didn't have the prerequisites. And he basically told me I could take it, but he didn't expect me to pass it. And that was a challenge to me. I immediately went to the bookstore. I bought the textbook. I had read the whole text by the time the first day of class just to show this guy. It was a textbook that also had, by Herskovitz, and it had some Nobel Prize papers in the back. This was just 10 years after Watson and Crick's discovery of the structure of DNA. And there were some fascinating things, and I think during that course I decided I wanted to be a geneticist. And it turns out that the professor who made fun of me for wanting to take his course without the prerequisites became my best buddy, helped me get in grad school, wrote recommendations for me, and got me into a PhD program, and I've been in genetics ever since. I think realistically, I knew I wasn't going to be a professional basketball player, but I did manage to play college ball and do fairly well. But only about halfway through my college degree did I realize, you know, I need to start thinking about life after basketball. And the first thing, like I said, was the dental school idea, and then ironically, it was in preparation for to qualify for dental school that I really found what I wanted to do, and that was study genetics. I became interested in genomes. Genomics is a big word right now, and we're in the human genome era in which we've just celebrated completion of sequencing the complete human genome. I've been interested in how mammalian genomes are organized. I started working with mice initially, comparing the mouse to the human genome. I've more recently been working with cattle and bovine, and looking at comparisons. And just the whole area of genomics is just it just fascinates me that all of this DNA. And let me give an illustration to you. I can't get too far away from my basketball example, but the cells in each of our billions of cells in our bodies contains about 1 meter of DNA. Now this is a microscopic cell, 1 meter of a very thin molecule. If you magnify a cell nucleus 50,000 times, it's about the size of a basketball. If you magnify that meter of DNA, it's about 17 miles of very fine sewing thread. And so this just fascinates me, that all of that material, all that DNA has to be precisely and evenly divided. Every time a cell divides, 2 cells get equal copies. It has to be reduced to exactly half, 1 copy of every gene in every segment when we make sperm and eggs, our reproductive cells, and just the whole business of how that DNA is packaged and organized. That is us. That is us. Right. That is us. Or that is a cow, or that is a mouse. And the differences in that DNA that make you and me different are interesting to me. But further than that, the differences in our DNA and a mouse or a cow that make us different is just fascinating to me. And curiosity, I think, is just such an important part of science. And if you're not really curious and want to know the answer to some questions, it probably would be a pretty dull field. Our work has been instrumental in finding some genes that are important for productivity in cattle. We've been able to contribute to the discovery of genes that determine some muscling factors which are important to beef industry, some milk traits, a ratio of fat to protein in the milk. We have also contributed to finding some genetic diseases in cattle, a dwarfism trait. So yes, there's some practical applications to the things that we've done.
Is this going on in your laboratory now?
This is going on now, and we are very interested in resistance to diseases. We believe that finding natural resistance that exists in populations is important. We're involved in some searches for genes that make cattle resistant to Johne's disease, which is a paratuberculosis disease, shipping fever, which is kind of like the common cold, I guess, in humans. We're involved in some collaborative work in Africa with cattle that are resistant to trypanosomes, little parasites that are carried by the tsetse fly. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of concern in bioterrorism that our food supplies might be attacked. I mean, in addition to trying to kill people or make people sick, that there might be some efforts to kill our animals, our crops, and so plant and animal pathogens and natural resistance to them may be very important. I guess, looking back, I probably had the idea that most important things had already been discovered. This was when I graduated high school in 1959. Looking back on that, I mean, it's so ridiculous, but I think most people, when they come out of high school, they look around them and they've got a good life, and you think, well, you know, there's not a whole lot more to be learned to make things any better. But that's not the case. And if teachers can stimulate students to find something they're interested in, and I think a good case of curiosity is what drives good science. I think individualized medicine, whether it be humans or animals, based on our genome. I think you and I have different DNA. I think one of us might respond differently to one drug than another. I think that different combinations of pharmaceuticals might work better for one of us than another. And I think in the next 10 to 15 years, we'll be matching our genotypes with the drugs we take. I think we will look at genotype-based medicine. Right. And we won't all be treated. We treat all cows as cows. We treat all humans as humans, and we assume that what is good for one is good for all. And I think we're going to learn that we can tweak this considerably if we know something about the genes of the individual. My research has been fun. Not that every day is fun. Nobody likes to write grants, and nobody likes to get turned down from with grant proposals. But this is a part of our culture, and but overall it's fun, and I think it's fun because every day we never know when we come to work. One of our students, grad students, is going to come in and say, "Look what I've just found," and you stop and think, and between you decide, "Oh, you know, nobody knew that before." Certainly, most of the life sciences, the biological sciences, eventually go back to a good sound foundation in chemistry, which means you better know some math and physics. And there was nothing wrong with the way I got my education. When I look back, I got my math and physics first, even though I didn't plan to use it in biology, and built my biology on top of that. I do teach. I teach a course in mammalian genetics, an undergraduate course for upper-level undergraduates every fall. I have taught the general genetics course on campus, some big classes. And of course, graduate training is teaching in a very true sense, a one-to-one relationship with your graduate students. My free time, I like to fish. I enjoy fly fishing. I also have a little cattle operation out about 30 miles out of town, and my wife and I enjoy going out and spending some time taking care of the land and the cattle, and we also have a nice fishing pond out there. It's amazing how much you can learn about genetics or genomics off the internet now. The National Institutes of Health has a human genome website. I don't know the address, but you can get in with some genomics or human genome as keywords, and tremendous amount of information is available. I just this week went to the opening of an exhibit on the human genome at the Museum of Natural Sciences in Houston. I'm really impressed with that museum, and very impressed with this exhibit, which is, I think, educational for anyone from 10 years old to PhD. And I think this is one of our big failings in science is sharing with the public. I think there are a lot of fears, concerns about genetics, DNA, genetically modified foods, some of which might be real, but most of which are just a matter of a public not being totally informed as to what DNA is, what a genome is, and what alterations in DNA do and what they don't do.